What is up, enthusiasts? It is Cedar Flags here, and welcome back to another one of my videos. So, as you may or may not know, Steel Vengeance is my number one out of all the coasters I have ridden by an absolute landslide. This is the closest to a perfect coaster I think we have in the world right now. It satisfies my every need as a coaster enthusiast and makes me begging for more every single time I get off. I absolutely love this ride, and I marathon it every last chance I get. But at the same time, even though I say it's the best in the world, I have not ridden all the roller coasters in the world, obviously. In fact, I have barely gotten out of the eastern United States. This is why in the rest of the world there's so many of my bucket list coasters out there. Roller coasters that I feel like if I rode, they would easily make my top 10 or maybe even my top 5. But there's only a handful of roller coasters out there that I would consider close to beating Steel Vengeance. Let me just say that these roller coasters, I don't know if they would beat Steel Vengeance, but I think these are the coasters that I think could beat Steel Vengeance. This is Cedar Flags, and here are some coasters that could overthrow Steel Vengeance and be my new number one. Now, before I get into the list, I just want to say that there are a few factors that I want to get through. The first factor is strong ejector airtime. I absolutely need strong ejector airtime, and that is really what makes Steel Vengeance my number one. This is why I prefer rides like Skyrush over Fury 325. I am an absolute airtime junkie. Airtime is my favorite part of any roller coaster, and it really just makes the ride for me. The next factor is duration. This doesn't have to be an extremely long ride, but you get bonus points if the ride is longer. I just don't want to ride too short. The final factor I want to talk about is pacing. I absolutely love pacing on a ride, and I love when the ride elements are packed right next to each other instead of long and drawn out. This really gives me bonus points, and these three reasons are why I love Steel Vengeance. But without further ado, let's get into the list. The first coaster or coasters I want to talk about are a pair of RMC Hyper Hybrids. These rides are so similar, I didn't want to spend the time to contrast each of them, so let's just look at them in one category. The first coaster I want to talk about is Irongwasi at Busch Gardens Tampa in this category. The other one I want to talk about is Zadra at Energylandia. Both of these RMC Hyper Hybrids look insane. They have the same amount of airtime moments and a very similar duration. They have long drawn out airtime moments near the first drop of the ride and after the first drop of the ride. There are so many similarities between these two rides, I really can't decide which one is better. They have a good variety of elements as well, and the pacing on these rides are unprecedented. This has some of the best pacing on any RMC with these two rides. These two rides seem like some of the best rides in the world, and I feel like if I rode either of them, they would easily make my top 3. These rides look insane, and they look like they throw you every which way out of your seat, which is why these are potentials for my new number one. Up next, we go down to Australia to go to DC Rivals at Warner Brothers Movie World, and oh my goodness, this looks like an insane ride and honestly looks like the king of Mack Hypers. This ride looks like a complete experience from beginning to end. That first drop looks menacing, and after that are some of the longest, most intense airtime moments on any coaster in the world. You have that airtime hump, and then you have that non-inverting vertical loop, and from what I've heard, those two moments are super intense. After that, following that, are many other airtime moments and many intense moments as well, and this ride just looks like the complete experience. You go from these big long drawn out elements to the smaller elements, and the ride just seems like it's complete. Now, for an added experience, you could also ride this backwards in the back row. Imagine going down that first drop backwards. I feel like that experience would probably be the best coaster experience on Earth, but with the rest of the ride, I feel like it would be top 10 worthy. Up next, we have the Voyage at Holiday World, a bucket list coaster for me for a very long time. There's so many things about this ride that amaze me. First off is that insane layout. I mean, the setting of this ride is one thing, but the layout is another thing. The setting into the woods is an incredible look. I mean, I've ridden the Beast at Kings Island, and I absolutely love that setting, but the layout doesn't impress me. This ride has an insane layout and an insane setting. Plus, you have some of the best airtime moments on any coaster in the world, including that triple down into the tunnel. And oh my goodness, all the tunnels, you are in pitch black darkness. And the duration of this ride. I mean, this is one of the only elite coasters on Earth that I could say goes over 100 seconds in duration. If you time it, it's almost a 2-minute experience. That's insane. And this is less than 200 feet tall. So I do not get how this ride doesn't lose momentum. But anyway, Voyage at Holiday World, you have made the list. And finally, we have one last coaster on this list, and I feel like this is easily the biggest contender for taking over my number one spot. It is Conda at Walibi, Belgium, opening up this year. What an insane ride this looks to be. Oh my goodness. I know I've been saying that for every ride, but this has an extra oh my goodness factor. You have that insane first drop, very similar to DC Rivals, going to this massive camelback hill, into this outward bank turn, and then the rest of the ride is each a unique airtime element. You have that non-inverting cobra roll that looks to give some pretty good floater, and then you have some of these sharp airtime moments low to the ground, including a wave turn. And that is the rest of the ride after that cobra roll. There's so many intense airtime elements it looks like to be on this ride, and even in the testing footage, this ride looks like it's hauling. It's long, it has a decent setting, the airtime looks super intense, the variety is top notch, and this ride just looks like the complete experience. If I got off of this ride, I would not be disappointed, and it might actually be my number one. I don't know, I have not ridden any of these rides. I do plan on riding one of these later this year, but we'll just have to see what happens. All of these rides look out of this world, and I tried to put this in a decent order to show the least likely to most likely to overcoming Steel Vengeance as my number one roller coaster. What do you think down in the comments below? Let me know if you've ridden any of these rides and what your number one coaster is compared to these. This is Cedar Flags, and I will see you all later.